when I get up in the morning, some mornings I can't stay in bed. I want to get up and find out what's happened. It's just the nature of being a reporter. I want to be the first person to know something, and once I know it, I want to be the first person to bring it to the attention of everybody.
Walter Robinson veteran je istraživačkog novinarstva. Svoje znanje odnedavno prenosi studentima fakulteta Walter Cronkite School of Journalism u Arizoni. Osim studentima, Walter Robinson poznat je i ostatku svijeta. On je glavno lice filma Spotlight, nagrađenog 2 Oscarima. Ipak filma ne bi bilo da upravo Robinson sa svojim istraživačkim timom Spotlight nije raskrinkao pedofiliju u dijelu katoličke crkve. Ovaj novinarski bard iz američkog Boston Globe-a hrvatskim je studentima prilikom njihovog studijskog boravka na sveučilištu u Arizoni prenio vrijedne lekcije.
Remember, they took 5 months of our work and they compressed it into 2 hours and 8 minutes. And that alone made our work seem exciting. You know, when in real life, what we did was kind of boring, you know. We all went on the road and kind of helped promote the film, really. And I think early on, the people who made the film realized, you know, they had the actors on the road, but then they realized that we were much more interesting, believe it or not, to audiences than, I mean, obviously I had a lot more to say about the work we did than Michael Keaton.
Well, how often do 4 of you remember that Catholic Church affair?
This is a scandal that has still not been fully uncovered, particularly in predominantly Catholic countries where the church and the state are close, and it's hard to get the state to investigate the church. It's especially true in Latin America, where there's been not much accountability. Even in Argentina, where the Pope came from, Pope Francis, when he was the Archbishop in Buenos Aires in 2002, and the story became a big story in the United States, he issued a statement saying that no priests in Argentina had abused children, which was not true.
In what way did that affair change your life?
Well, I think we aged more quickly, you know, because it was a tough story to do. We talked to hundreds of people who had been abused as children, and those are not easy interviews to do. I mean, not easy to ask the questions, but not easy either to listen to the answers without becoming, you know, emotionally affected. So you're reporters, you must have questions.
Victims. What is the right approach to them?
The trick is to gain the trust of the person, and sometimes we had to meet several times with people before they would be willing to tell us what happened to them. Because first of all, one thing you need to know, nobody would tell you this by telephone. You just email, no. You have to sit with people. And very often when they started to talk to us, the point we would make to them is that we felt that many people had been gravely hurt and that it was still happening, and that in order to put a stop to it, to bring an end to it, to make sure it didn't happen to many other children, if they would speak out, if they would tell their stories, if we could publish collectively what happened to so many children, that would force an end. And that was the most powerful argument.
How was it to lead this really important team of investigative reporters for 7 years
For many years, when I did my stories by myself. Because I only wanted one name at the top of the story, and it wasn't yours. It was mine. It was my story. And then I became an editor and worked with younger reporters for several years. And then when I was asked to lead this team, I went and recruited 3 very good reporters. But the thing that was uppermost in my mind was finding really good reporters who I thought were selfless, that they could subordinate their own egos and work together. And that was the secret, actually, to the success of our team was the teamwork. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to have 4 reporters working together if they don't talk to each other. And the fact that we every day sat down and talked about what each of us were doing, and you would listen to what I said I was doing with my reporting, and you would sit there and think about it, and you would say, well, wait a minute, did you think to talk to so-and-so? Or have you thought about looking for that record? And you know what? I hadn't. And all of a sudden, my reporting became better because you were my teammate. And we did that every day.
We've got 2 stories here. A story about degenerate clergy, and a story about a bunch of lawyers turning child abuse into a cottage industry. Which story do you want us to write? Because we're writing one of them.
Interactions with journalists from so many countries where there aren't freedoms this year convinced me that this generation, your generation of journalists, are really kind of in the vanguard in many countries of people who want to push the limits to change and bring more openness and transparency. The role that you will play in Croatia is far more important for the future of Croatia than the role that myself and my colleagues here play in an established democracy with a free press. That your enthusiasm and hard work will make a much, much bigger difference, I think, than you realize right now.
You mentioned that investigative journalism isn't really the appropriate term for you. You mentioned something else.
I think every reporter should be an investigative reporter who has good instincts and who knows where to go to get to all of the fabulous information that's now available to reporters. And even daily news stories can benefit from the use of investigative reporting techniques. The economics of the business have made it very difficult for many news organizations to continue to do really good, I want to call it accountability reporting, because public officials and institutions accountable to the public for what they do.
It is being said that investigative journalism is too expensive. How much did it cost, that investigation that you did?
Marty Barron, who was our editor, is now the top editor at the Washington Post, said, and he had the numbers, that it cost the Globe, not counting our salaries, $1 million. One of the things that papers do that's very expensive is investigative reporting. And many papers have cut back or eliminated that. And I think that's a mistake. And I actually think the movie sparked a conversation in the journalism world about the importance of investigative reporting. And I don't know if you ever survey your readers or in Croatia, but here in the United States, when you take a newspaper's subscribers and you do a readership survey and you ask them what is most important, the answer is always investigative reporting.
It's the whole system.
Spotlight team, show me that it came from the top down.
In your words,
what is it to be a journalist nowadays?
You know, one thing that hasn't changed since the 1970s when I first came to the Boston Globe, and today, is that good editors will always want to hire good reporters. And good editors know what good reporters are. Good reporters are resourceful, they have good instincts, they know where to go to get information. In other words, they're already good investigative reporters. So the difference between reporters nowadays and reporters 50 or 60 years ago, reporters used to be more working class. Many of them didn't have college degrees. And so they were sort of more in tune with what was going on. Nowadays, it's very difficult for news organizations to cover and find stories about people who have been victimized by society, because we don't know those people, and we don't talk to those people. One thing I used to do when I was an editor at the Globe, if a reporter was sitting around twiddling his or her thumbs, I would go up to them and say, I'd like you to get in your car and drive out to Hyde Park, which is a racially mixed working class section of Boston, and get out of your car and walk around and talk to people and listen to them. One thing we're not very good at, we're good at talking, but we're not very good at listening sometimes. And listen to people and find out what their lives are like, and come back with 5 stories. And I was always amazed at what the reporters came back with, because they learned things that they never imagined.
Oh, whoa! They knew, and they let it happen. It could have been you, it could have been me, it could have been any of us.
There is this issue, fake news. How do you cope with fake news? What would you suggest to young journalists?
Well, I would suggest that the best antidote to fake news is real news and real reporting and serious attention to fact gathering.
Thank you for your conversation, for your time.
Do viđenja.